Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. I hope you had a great weekend. Let's move on to Sub-Saharan Africa. Cyclone Lidai. After the floods, the famine, then more of the same. Mail and Guardian. Overnight, Mozambique's second largest city disappeared. All the lights in Beira went off. Its buildings vanished under 6 meters of water. Its roads were washed away, its bridges were torn from their foundation, and its people, well, still no one knows how many of its people survived. They huddled together on the roofs of 3-story buildings as the floodwater lapped at their feet. Trapped in the branches of the tallest trees, they braced against gale-force winds and waited for a rescue that for many never came. What's left of Beira is now cut off from the rest of Mozambique. Humanitarian agencies only able to bring in supplies by air or by boat. National Road number 6, the one major road linking the city to the rest of the country, has been destroyed. Beira is now an island in the ocean, according to media reports. So far, according to official tallies, more than 200 people have died in Mozambique, 56 in Malawi and 98 in Zimbabwe. All those numbers are complete gobbledygook because it's far more than that. Zambia's dollar bonds are coming under pressure again. The government's 2024 yields are back about 15%. And that made me think of the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the center cannot hold, mere anarchies loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming, hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with a lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. It's moving its slow thighs while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born? Scenting victory, the protesters refused to give up. In the end, Bouteflika and his inner circle around him faced a simple choice: crush the protests or give in to them. Africa Confidential. Kapuscinski, if the crowd disperses, goes home, does not reassemble, we say the revolution is over. The choice of that moment is the greatest riddle of history. Joseph Kabila, Africa Confidential again, his political coalition has a decisive majority in the upper house, which has handed him the power to impeach his newly installed successor, Felix Tshisekedi, if he chooses. And that took me back to January when I was writing about this and quoting him. He was being interviewed by, I think, the FT, and he said, alluding to Arnold Schwarzenegger, "I'll be back." He never went. And it was indeed a clever ruse by the outgoing president and a plot twist to put the opposition candidate into power. Mithuli Cube wins foreign fans. The economy is crashing at home with worse in the pipeline, but the finance minister's plans are winning support overseas. This is a rare picture of Emperor Haile Selassie smiling from Meso B Work 1. That took me back to The Emperor, which is a book by Kapuscinski, and the tale of the emperor's dog called Lulu. Haile Selassie's lapdog that was allowed to piss on the shoes of dignitaries, and the courtier whose job for 10 years was to wipe those shoes clean with a satin cloth. The cushion bearer, the emperor, was very short and therefore had to be perched on cushions so as not to be beneath his subjects, became an all-powerful figure at the imperial court. 2nd of July, I wrote an article last year, Ethiopia Rising. It's a tough task, however. Dollar rand, I think the Tsar looks pony, currently at 15.53. Egyptian pound, as I said, one of the best adjusted currencies, 17.281. Nigerian all-share, minus 0.93%. Equity investors are not enamored with Baba Go Slow. Ghana Stock Exchange down 3.89% year to date, but they did lob out $3 billion of Eurobonds last week. Notice on termination of a bilateral investment agreement between the Netherlands and Tanzania. Not a good sign. I like this photograph of the MCP campaigning in a place called Salima in Malawi, where I've been. You get the best of both worlds of Malawi. Next stop is in Kata Bay, down by the lake, and a treat of the coolest lake I've ever seen or dipped my foot in. And indeed, it's a fantastic lake. Lovely photographs from that tweet.